I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Friday, April 28th, 2023. And on Fridays, it's the Healing Circle. I'm pleased to connect in this space every week. It's a special place, it's a healing place. And we are so fortunate to be under the leadership and tutelage, I call it, of Dr. Bravada Garrett-Akinsanya, the principal at the African American Child Wellness Institute, a noted professional author, speaker, a healer, and a friend, and just a genuinely great, and excellent human being. Well, Dr. Oliver Williams also joins us on Fridays. Normally, we hope to have special guests continuing the vibe we had last week. We're looking for Azmera Hammouri-Davis to join us. What a wonderful conversation we had last week, bringing her voice, her vision, her story as an educator, as a healer, as a martial artist, and as a person of a multi-ethnic, uh, you know, family background, what that means to her movement in the world. We might be able to continue some of that conversation today. Our theme today really is talking about Black celebrities, how and whether Black celebrities can and are they teaching us best mental health practices. And I'm going to, before I start the program, lead off with an article that sets the stage. After that, I'm going to ask Dr. B to come on board and set the protocol for the conversation for the balance of the program. But I've got an article pulled up by Aisha Plummer. Before I do the article, one more request of you. We really appreciate you being a part of this community, this experience. We want you to ramp it up, help us ramp it up. We are inviting everybody that we know to invite everybody that they know to support this program by becoming a subscriber. You subscribe by going to our YouTube channel. It's YouTube Inside News, and simply hit subscribe. What that means is you get notifications of programs, of this program and other programs, because we're on 5 days a week. We're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of people from all around the world. And it also puts you in the situation where you can help us develop our content strategy. We want to really hear from you, engage you. We want you to be able to say, you know what, insight, you know what, conversations, you know what, Al, you ought to be talking about ABC or CDE, or talk about this way or that way. This is collaborative, and we want to demonstrate that we have both the capacity and the desire to build with you, and the hope that you want to build with us. Building together, we have committed to author a future, to co-create a future in which our people win. What do you mean, Al McFarlane? Our people win. Our people, human beings, every human being on the planet, we want to create a future in which our people win. And everybody means everybody. Well, let me get to the topic. The question or the story is on Yahoo News. It's entitled Black Celebrities Are Teaching Us the Best Mental Health Practices. Again, an article published Sunday, April 23rd, a couple of days ago, written by Aisha Plummer. And it says Black women are beginning to prioritize their mental health in all aspects. They are traveling the world, maintaining the soft girl persona, updating their skincare routines, doing low impact workouts, and more. Overall, Black women are living their best lives unapologetically. Many Black women believe that the first step to achieving the highest level of self-love is boosting their mental health. If their mental health is prioritized, then they can manifest their wildest dreams. While social media can be a falsified perception of reality, there is one thing that is true. Black women are growing. They are prioritizing themselves and breaking generational trauma. Anyone can scroll on their screen on any given day and see a woman living their best stress-free life. Black celebrities are also using their platforms to encourage their followers to prioritize mental health. They're opening up more and sharing their journey with the world, which is inspiring to the community, whether it's through social media, a television show, or musical anthem. These Black celebrities are doing more than prioritizing their mental health and self-love. They're actually empowering other women to love themselves, take care of their mental health, and rebuild their confidence. I'll read a little bit more and we'll go from there. It makes reference to speak positive affirmations like Coco Jones. Speaking positivity in your life can take you places. Places that you wouldn't even imagine, whether it's praying or chanting affirmations throughout the day or giving yourself grace. It allows you to change your mindset. Actress and singer Coco Jones is using her platform to show Black women what mental health practice looks like. In her teenage years, Coco Jones appeared on the Disney Channel original movie that was called, let's see, well, you know what? I'm going to stop there. That's enough to begin with. Set the course of the discussion about how Black women and ultimately Black people, Black celebrities are using their platforms to create change for themselves and for the world. Well, let's begin then by bringing in Dr. B. Dr. B, good afternoon. Good to see you. I'm going to pass the talking stick to you to launch the program and to introduce our protocol for engagement today.
Thank you so much, Brother Al. I take this talking stick, and I'm grateful to have it. As you know, and as our listeners know, and people who visit us on the show, every week we have a virtual circle. Even though we're not in the same location, we hold the spirit of the circle amongst us. And the reason African people use circle is because in the circle, there is no power differentials. Everybody's equal and everybody has equal access to voice. And that is the center of the circle. In addition, one of the things we do is we honor our elders. And that is very much a part of our African culture, to recognize that they are the shoulders that we stand on. And we honor our elders because they're closest to our ancestors. And of course, we honor our ancestors because they're closest to our Creator. So in that honoring space, there is healing because everyone is spirit, is put united, put there for a reason to promote our health, our growth, our continual adaptation, and more importantly, our balance. And in the circle, because of balance and orderliness, we have a talking stick. And although we're not physically together, we use the virtual talking stick to have our conversation. So it goes from one person to the next. And if one needs a stick, you just ask for it and it comes back to you and you can say your piece and pass the stick back into the universe of the sharers of knowledge. We also acknowledge that we have a connection with each other, and we call it consubstantiation. That means all living things are connected to each other. I'm connected to Brother Al and all human beings on the planet, and I'm connected to the earth and the sky and the trees and everything in it. So our responsibility is greater than just for oneself. It is a responsibility to life and all of life as we do this work together. And as today we talk about the power of healing in Black women, and not just Black women, in our capacity as Black folks in the diaspora, as we talk about that healing, just keeping in mind that we are connected to even our brothers and sisters who are Lakota, who farmed and loved this land that we stand on, and we acknowledge that. They cared for it, and that's why it's here today. And with that, I'll pass this talking stick back to Baba Al. So here you go, Brother Al.
All right, thank you, Dr. B. You know, I love the article that I opened with because the tone of it was positive, and I want to ask you to focus in on that. What I was taking from it as I read it was a starting place, and the starting place was saying that, number one, in the positive, that the celebrities are teaching us best mental health practices. So it's claiming authority and describing what is and why. And what was noticeably absent was the dwelling on the trauma. And I think that doesn't ignore that we're all suffering and that we've been traumatized, but it focuses on the other side of the trauma and the capability of women, celebrities in particular, but women and all of us to do what needs to be done to prioritize the condition of health that we seek and that we deserve. Did it strike you the same way? What was the first impression you had when you were hearing the words of the article? What was your thought? Talking stick back to you, Dr. B.
Thank you so much. Well, for me, it was very affirming because part of my life's work is to promote wellness. And I know how elusive wellness can be in a society that has so many contradictions to our empowerment, so many ways that systemic racism and uh, paternalistic, paternalistic values tend to push us down, especially as Black women. But the thing I did notice is that if we focus on the positive, that our actual bodies change. I noticed that as they talked about stepping out of that space of pain and shame that comes from being traumatized and misused, confused, abused, all of those different things we've had, coming out of that requires a deliberate effort on the part of people, not just women, but of people. And these Black women that they're talking about in the article, they have decided, I choose to love me. I choose to be well. I choose to make those steps toward wellness in my life. And knowing that when I'm well, those around me will be well. And that I become that catalyst. And I'm so proud to see these sisters who are lifted up using their bully pulpit to be able to share what we have to do to maintain and obtain our wellness. Attain, obtain, and contain our wellness.
Well, that reminds me of the purpose of the protocol is to establish a pathway, a vocabulary, a practice that is sustainable and that takes the mystery out of it and says, these are the steps. These are what we can do, have to do, must do, are doing, are able and willing to do, because these are the results we desire. This is the life we choose to live and the life we deserve. All of that on the positive plane. And that is being said as affirmations in ways that don't deny challenges or negative obstacles, but that focus on the capacity to be planful, thoughtful, and successful in navigating beyond any adversarial experience or situation. And so I think that's kind of what it says to me. And I think I try to look at how individuals manifest that. And as individuals manifest it, then how do we as a culture manifest the same? I think the truth of the matter is we've always demonstrated this phenomenal resilience, resourcefulness, the phenomenal indwelling genius, and one could call it an indwelling sense of the divine, of divinity, of purposefulness, and of commission. The commission is to exist and exist abundantly, even when everything around us tells us that the storm is going to throw us off course or destroy us or immobilize us. We somehow have been able to continue to resist and to grow and to overcome all of the odds, right? Those external and those that we've internalized under the pressure, the weight of the external opposition. what is necessary now, and we've probably always done it, but what we can do differently now, I think, because of modern technology, is tell our stories. And that's what I hear in this article. The writer says that not only are Black women, Black celebrities healing themselves, it's not just that. Yes, it is that, but they are telling everybody else, heal yourself as well. And they say it in a way that says this is doable and it can be done, and you can do it, and we can do it, and together. And so they, in a sense, are redefining who we are, creating a different set of languages for describing our common experience and our common aspiration in a way that honors all that we have achieved, all that we have gone through. It doesn't deny any of that, but it says, look at all that. And look at how I got over. My soul looks back and wonders, right? How I got over it, and I'm still here.
Right.
I don't know.
That's right.
Get me to preaching, Dr. B. I'm going to pass the talking stick back to you.
Well, you're about to get me to preaching, because as you were talking, I was saying how it really validates who we are and who we have always been. And I kept thinking, as you were talking, I'm like a tree standing by the water. I shall not be moved. And how that resilience is in a deep space. The roots of who we are in our very DNA is the capacity to be resilient. And so as you were talking, I thought about that, and I thought about how externally we have that, but I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around. So the whole piece of the ability of us as Black folks, especially as Black women leaders, to take our space, to claim our space. We've got examples way before us of women who captured their space. Sister Maya Angelou having to live through traumatic child abuse and being able to go and write those beautiful words, realizing that for many years, for I think till the age of 5, I believe she was she had what we call selective mutism. She would not speak because she realized the power of her words, and then she was liberated through her words. So I think about how as we invite ourselves to heal, we're automatically creating a road map for others to do the same. And that's what I love about being a healer, about being a psychologist, is that when you step into a space, you bring your whole self. And what I love about it is that you got to understand how girls are socialized. You've got a daughter, I know. So actually, you've got 2 daughters. So, but
four daughters. I got 4.
That's right. So the main thing, though, is that we as children, the first thing they put in our hands are dolls. And the doll is going to be wet. You have to change her. The doll needs to be fed. You got to feed her. So immediately as we're socialized into girlhood, there is a component that says we have to nurture others. But the component of nurturing ourselves is often left out. Boys, they get guns to be cowboys or things like that. So they learn that they're protecting themselves. They learn ways of making sure they overcome conquerors. And so the socialization of girls and boys can lead to these roles that are so rigid that many of us can't break out. But those same definition of what we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to be is also hung up in our professions. So when we see these Black women who are actors and learning to try on these different personas for a living, we also see that they can adapt. And if they can adapt, we can adapt. That's the whole point about culture. It is a way that we learn to promote our society and our continued existence by adapting to what's in front of us. So the wellness of us means that we've had to adapt to not just care for others, but put ourselves in the middle. Put ourselves in the front, because you can't help people if you can't help yourself. And I'm living proof of that, of how hard it is to be there for others if you don't take care of you. I'm telling you, it's serious.
Mm-hmm. So, how do we, as a community, adopt the understanding to continue to grow this shared vision? I often call it, I've used this in proposals I've written uh, to support like marketing and media and public education, but I call it creating a public mind.
Mhm.
Visualize this. Visualize the collective energy of all of our brains as a collective mind. And so I say, we need to uh, uh, pay attention to and nurture and groom, and with intentionality, uh, uh, create growth, healing, exercise, and awareness of the notion that there is a public mind that is the mind of all of us together. And within that mind, there are many, 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 many options, and everything is not on the exact same page all the time. But the matrix of it is what makes the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of all of the parts, right? And so I keep you know envisioning ways that we can create a vocabulary in our community that allows us to see things differently. Too often, I believe we see the negative, the impossible, or what's in front of us as the negative only, or as the impossible, or as what can't be done, or as an example of what wasn't done right, or what didn't happen, what didn't work, what failed. And so we end up being hamstrung in our movement forward by our fear, uh, because the fear is informed by what we call things that didn't go right, that were wrong. And I'm wondering, is there a way for us to reassess, to reanalyze the things that we might have described as wrong, things that we knew as pain, things that we knew as wrong, but how do we face that with courage and with intent, and use that as fuel to grow into who we can and should and will become? What do you think?
I'm loving what you're saying because there are two parts of it for me. One is that if you can recognize your role in impacting change, you're no longer a victim. You become an actor, a part of the process. You become a facilitator of change within your own life and those of others. And we have some things in psychology that we use to validate that. One is we have this fantastic idea of defense mechanisms, one's way of protecting one's psyche or ego or sense of self. And the highest form of um, these these defense mechanisms is called sublimation. And sublimation means that you take that anger, you feel it, you experience it, and it serves as a propeller to greatness. You use that anger for something good. You
Mm,
take that grief, that loss, and you transform that energy into something that will uh, motivate you, will push you, and will sustain you through a changing process, that sublimation, that defense mechanism. And another one we have that we've talked on briefly before, and that's post traumatic growth. That after one experiences grief, loss, and trauma, you don't acknowledge that it doesn't happen, but you take it and say, okay, what did I learn from it? How can I use that learning to better prepare myself and those around me? How can I make a difference in the world based on what I've been through? All the trials and tribulations weren't for nothing. How can I take that knowledge and make the world better and make my world better by doing it? So those ideas of post-traumatic growth, of sublimation, and the final process that I often use is called cognitive reframing. And in the process of cognitive reframing, what we actually do is change our minds. We reframe the way we see the experience. And so often we hear people say, the glass is half empty, the glass is half full.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you choose? A sense of
Mm-hmm.
lack, which will make you feel bad inside, or a sense of hope and abundance? So that same 8 ounces can be saying, oh Lord, I only got half a glass of water. Or it can be, oh Lord, I still got a glass, half a glass of water.
Yeah.
And right, something, and guess what else? Something physically changes in your brain chemistry
Uh-huh.
when you choose something that's positive. If I see it as, oh wow, I still got a half glass of water, some neurons are going to go off in my brain. I'm going to get some good feelings in my spirit. It'll prolong my life.
Mm.
All of those things are what happens when you go positive instead of hanging on the negative side. Or move from the dark side to the light.
Dr. B, I've been listening to some lectures on YouTube by Dr. Jacob Carruthers. Do you know who he is by any
I've
chance?
heard of him, yes.
He's a fellow Texan, actually. So he's your homeboy. He died in 2004, though. And I just have been fascinated by what I've heard from him. I discussed, or not discussed, but learned. I was always aware of him. I hadn't read his work, but I knew about his work. I pulled up and I see that the 4 books he's got included one called Intellectual Warfare. He has a book called Medu Necher, or Divine Speech. And he has another one called The Irritated Genie. And his first book in 1984 was called Essays in Ancient Egyptian Studies. He was one of the founders of I think it's called the Society for African Civilization, for the study of African civilization. I'm probably saying the name wrong. It's called ASCAC, and I'll get the right one. But I've been simply fascinated listening to several of his speeches on YouTube, and I'm going to listen to more and get the books that I just mentioned and read them so I'm more familiar. But he's in a vein of thinking of great Black historians and philosophers, and we're talking about Kemet. He was one of the founders of the Kemetic Institute. He was associated with the work of Sheikh Anta Diop. His mentor, he said, was the great Dr. Hunter. My first name, and I shouldn't ever forget his first name, but it'll come to me in a second. But mental notes from the show I just watched, a lecture he did in 2004, I think. He tried to describe our history as African people from antiquity to now, and how we as African people have engaged the rest of the world. Said a couple of things that are sticking with me that I'm trying to digest, and you can help me do that. One, he described our culture, our sensibility, our way of assembling the world as Africans from the very beginning, this like from thousands of years ago, is that we discovered the capacity to understand and to know that everything was part of everything, that everything that exists is part of the all, and that it is okay. Everything has a place. And because of that disposition, that understanding, when we encountered what you would call foreign people or foreign ideas, or ideas from the next town or from the next generation or from the next language or from the next culture, the attitude was, how do we accommodate? Let's accommodate. And figure out how to bring in their understanding alongside, to be adjacent to our understanding, because we have the sense that all of it is part of the same thing, just different dispensations or different access points, but all from the Creator and all headed towards the promise of life and life beyond the plane that we occupy, but life in the celestial or eternal order. So that's kind of one set of ideas. So he talked about with that, the problem with that was that when some people from different understandings motivated from their experience by the thought that if something didn't align with how they viewed the world, they had to crush it or destroy it. And so over centuries, over millennia, African people were continually besieged by people and ideas, people in culture, people and strategies that whose premise was that you have to disavow who you are and what you've done, and either be like me or you don't get to be at all. We kill you, right? And so he kind of described that as the point of conflict between African civilization, the Africana way of doing, and the vulnerability that we as Africans have had historically, because we were always inviting, encouraging, and we understood that even things that don't seem like they match have a place. And the problem is when what you think has a place also has the ability to destroy you. We've been victims of that. Let me stop there because I got some specifics I want to ask you about. But how does that sound to you just in conversation? And I'm sharing this to be learning as I'm reading, so I'm getting feedback. I see Azmera is here too. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure she'll have something to say about it too in a minute. But all I know is that you're right on, and that which is different is seen as deviant. And that idea of consubstantiation that I mentioned earlier is exactly lived out in the work that you're describing, that we're all connected. And the problem is that we see our connection, and those who don't see their connection to us, it moves to that paternalistic idea and superiority idea that we are to be controlled versus joined or collaborated with. And so that, to me, that describes the kind of conflict that we have had as African people in diaspora since the beginning of time, that we are ready to collaborate because that's our nature. We're collectivist, that's our nature. We're communal, that's our nature. And we're butt up against people who have exactly the opposite values. And the belief is not to connect, but to disconnect. The belief is not to share power, but to abuse power and to control. So as we talk about this, it's going to be exciting when we begin to look at how it affects interpersonally, parenting, systems, policies. All of those same values play out every single day in our lives. And brother, you hitting on it. I'm just saying there's some scary stuff, but I'm sure we'll be safe going through it.
Well, I'm excited, and what I'll do in future is he mentions in describing how we as African people have responded. There have been three main streams of responses, and I guess he's writing as a historian and philosopher. He says one is to revolt against oppression, oppressors, oppressive ideas, and he just cites chapter and verse of oppression from antiquity through the Denmark Vesey and other Africans in this world, in this country, in this hemisphere, in these times. But he also talks about a strategy, and he specifically was talking about the United States and slavery. But one strategy has been to petition. And he said that, back when, the masses of us were enslaved, there was no shortage of people saying, look, let's try to reason with this guy. And we go to him and say, sir, we've done everything you've asked us to do. We've defended you. We've served you. We haven't complained. And we simply are appealing to your best humanity. Give us our freedom, or give us a day off, or give us a pay. But the petition was a process. And he said, we still are petitioning because we petitioned to get the 13th Amendment, the 14th and the 15th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and of 65. And we continue to go back petitioning, asking for our humanity to be recognized. And he said the third stream, and these things all exist now, is a stream of collaboration, the belief that, our solution is not particularly in resisting or revolting, escaping, finding a way out from the oppression, the oppressor, and it's not particularly in petitioning, because they at some point in time are simply not going to do it. And then, but then collaborating is a third stream, and he described some people he called whose approach and strategy was collaboration. I'm going to stop there because I'm going to read more and come back, but I want to engage you and me and Sister Azmera and others, Dr. Oliver, in the question of strategies. What and how do we develop and execute our bid for freedom and our place in the world? Well, let me bring in maybe Dr. Azmera Hammouri-Davis. Azmera, how you doing?
Hello. Oh, it's good to be with you. I am doing well. No, thank you for that honor, and inshallah, in due time, perhaps I will.
Not yet.
That's right. That's right. Doctor, student of life. That is my title, student of life.
Well, let me describe you as an award-winning poet and founder of Break the Boxes and a community partnership lead at the Harvard Radcliffe Institute. And we had such a wonderful conversation last week. Take a minute and describe what those projects are so people get a sense of who you are and what motivates and provides passion for you.
Oh, yes, thank you. And it's always lovely to be here. I'm grateful to be with you all. I'm Azmera, a dope MC in the place to be with 2 degrees from Harvard and USC, but most importantly, I'm a capoeirista, grateful to be alive, and it's really nice to meet folks that might be new with us. So I'm a poet, spoken word poet. Since I was a little girl, I've been writing poetry, and that's been the way that I've connected to any sense of divine, a sense of God, or just faith and goodness. And I founded Break the Boxes when I was at college at the University of Southern California, when I was a sophomore in 2015. And really, Break the Boxes it's an initiative. It became a 501c3, a nonprofit organization. We're focused on creating programs and workshops that support young people in helping their voice to get heard through capoeira and poetry. So through that work, I've worked with young people who have been in war zones, in Ramallah, West Bank, to Oakland, to Los Angeles, to Salvador Bahia, Brazil. And I'm really grateful to get to do that work. And during the pandemic, we adapted by creating a platform to host conversations with different artists, activists, scholars, based on the premise that everyone can break free. Everyone can break free of scarcity mindsets, scarcity, just ways of thinking, of limited beliefs. Everyone can break free of those things, and therein lies a set of tools that we can use to break free of these larger systems of oppression that may be committed to our degradation. So that's a little bit about me. And yes, I'm based here right now on Harvard's campus. I work at the Radcliffe Institute, which is it's an interdisciplinary center committed to research that demands knowledge from across disciplines, and it's really focused on curiosity-driven research, and its history stems from fighting for educational equity within larger institutions. So it was first a women's college back in the 80s, and grateful, to be bridging gaps between community and institutions in my role, namely leading and designing storytelling and justice programming, partnering with the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services and youth who are currently and informally incarcerated, and doing work that allows them to step into their authentic voice. So it really feels like it maps on kind of naturally to a lot of the work that I've been doing with community orgs through Break the Boxes. So I hope that gives a little bit of context to who I am.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to ask you also, I'll put you on the spot, but I know you're used to this all the time, to think about freestyling or doing some of your poetry. If you've got something that you have written that you want to share, I'd love to have you do that. Or if you want to freestyle, I think show your skills. That's, I think our people are so creative and so beautiful and so capable And it's not hard. It's like breathing. It's how we breathe, how we
Mhm.
walk, And so, in that spirit, respecting and valuing the genius I see before me, I invite you to bring it any way you want to in the
Oh.
course of this program, and let's see where we go.
All right. Thank you for that invitation. Yes, a gift to be here. So I have poetry that's, it's in a lot of different spaces, but poetry, like a spoken word poem that I think speaks to me often, is called Freedom, where we asked different colleagues post, the acquittal of George Zimmerman for murdering Mike Brown.
Trayvon.
I asked, sorry, Trayvon, was that?
Trayvon.
Yeah, Trayvon, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We asked each other, what does freedom look like to you? And so we then decided to create a visual poem about what freedom means. What does that look like? And so I say, take a look around you. What do you see? Everything they said you wouldn't, couldn't, and shouldn't be. But we break boxes to be free, while cynics scoff and deceive. They said you wouldn't achieve, but you wouldn't believe all the pain they put you through. Throwing shame on your name, but can't change what God already ordained in you. So, darling, keep your head up. Never let them see you sweat, because darkness can't drive out darkness. Hate can't drive out hate, and in this space, it can spark is love that can liberate, grace to permeate. Shout out to MLK, yes. Because if you stay ready, ain't got to get ready, so that we breeze through this life, moving slow and steady, yeah. Firm and focused, yup, you know this. We seize every moment, serving and scratch the surface, breaking boxes on purpose. No weapon can work this, yet abundance in surplus. So, darling, keep your head up. Never let them see you sweat, because darkness can't drive out darkness. Hate can't drive out hate, and in this space, he can spark love that can liberate, grace to permeate. Shout out to MLK and Malcolm X and Ida B. Wells and Fannie Lou Hamer and Zora Neale Hurston and Toni Morrison and all of the freedom fighters who fight with their pens and their papers and their words to free us and to free our people. Mama Maya Angelou. So thank you. That's just a little something.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you for delivering and being that and sharing your voice and your vision. And so, as a healer, how do these words and how do the actions that, end up being your daily routine deliver healing for you personally, for the people around you, and healing for the planet? What do you do? Do you see yourself with a degree of consciousness, awareness about the connection to the breath you're taking now and everything else that exists and the healing power of it? What do you think?
Oh, that's such a powerful question. And it's bringing me to the interconnectedness that you all were referring back to, that our people, as a person of African descent, I feel the rhythm and the poetry so naturally. Like I can't remember when it was that I learned what rhyme or rhythm was. It just feels like it is as natural as this breath. And I think how
Azmera, what you're saying now is poetry. I mean, just what you just said is poetic. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there.
we receive, the gifts that the ancestors give and that they've given. And there's a poetics to, there's a book called The Poetics of Relation. And one of the, like what I'm sitting with is this idea of capoetics, because capoeira, quite literally the embodiment of, the history of capoeira comes out of a history of resilience and innovation. Because formerly enslaved peoples weren't allowed to practice self-defense, so they disguised it as a dance. And so there's an embodied poetics to what they do. And then there's the actual poetry and the oral sort of storytelling that's passed on. And so this idea of how does poetry, or how does sitting with, I view myself as just one part in this larger grand scheme of grand scheme of things, trying to get free. And so I see myself as the freer I can allow myself to be, the freer I see my loved ones, my siblings, the people I'm in community with, and it's a ripple effect. Because when I see folks who are free, it inspires me to get freer. Like I thought I was free, but actually, you know, we got so and so and so and so who their energy is taking me somewhere. So it's expanding my ability to tap into what it means to be human, to be alive, and to be trying to get free. And so I say that because with capoetics, and specifically the capoetic that I'm really grateful to be working with women to expand their courage, to step into their power fully, and to expand their joy and their creativity. You know, especially as someone who is Black and who is women, there's a lot of experiences that we might have that we don't always necessarily see reflected in the larger court of public opinion. And so a lot of suffering in silence happens often, where we don't even know, we don't have the language to name what it is that we're going through, and then we don't have the supports to receive what we need. And I think often, you know, it's beautiful to see that therapy is something that's taking more precedence now, and that's been more, you know, on the fore. And I think that there's this element of, yes, we absolutely need to be prioritizing our mental health. And also, though, there's a spiritual component and there's a spiritual dimension to what it means to be caring for yourself holistically, that I think sometimes when that's not addressed, then it can lead to ongoing, you know, long-term, you know, it seems like it's long-term mental health issues, but really there's a spiritual, there's some core beliefs, or there's some things that we need to get at under the surface. That's not just cerebral and Western, you know, like Western practices love the cerebral cognitive behavioral therapy, which is fantastic and I've benefited from. But there's also something that undergirds why we choose to get up in the morning, what we find meaning in, why does our life matter? What are we fighting for? What are we breathing for? You know? And so I still have to say, with capoetics and the capoetic method, I'm really focused on, okay, what does freedom look like to me? It means, do I have a sense of play in my day? Am I letting myself move my body and play? What am I in practice around with my relationships to people? Am I practicing reaching out to them when they come to mind, or just sending them a text, letting them know that I'm thinking of them, right? Very practically speaking. And what about my sense of possibility? Like, am I limiting myself here? Do I think that this is the only way I can do something? And what's that about? You know, where can I do something differently? So just focusing on like play present at work and at home, and if not, how can we get more of it? Is what are we practicing? What are we aware that we're practicing? Because often we don't even know we're not aware of what we're practicing, so we don't know how to unhinge it and try something different. So it's peace, and then you know, the principle of peace. Where am I out of alignment with my own sense of peace right now, and what do I need to feel like I can improve my relationship to peace with myself, therefore with other people who I'm in community with. And so I really go back to those pillars, and that's what I'm really blessed to be preparing to do more fully, right? Working with women specifically and providing some of those services, to the spiritual care counseling and the meaning making coaching. I love doing that work, and preparing to fully launch into that work. So that's a little bit.
That's awesome. Dr. B, jump in here. Just where's the spirit taking you?
I'm just flying. I just love hearing Sister Azmera talk. It just fills my soul with just joy, not just your brilliance, but your rhythm, your tone, your use. I don't even know if you realize, when you talk, you use your whole body. I can see the words flowing out. I can see that. And it's so enlightening and affirming and wonderful to witness. And it makes me know that I'm a part of that. And that all of us in this panel, we are a part of that reality of the flow of energy that comes from one another, that propels us to recognize our spirituality. And I love what you said about cognitive behavior therapy as a good tool. But one of the most powerful parts is the spirituality. And I'm going to say, any Black psychologist worth her grain in salt would understand that all of this is based on a spiritual reality.
Mhm.
Every word, every breath,
Mhm.
every action, every thought
Mhm.
is based on a spiritual reality. And I see
Mhm.
us in this space right now as a divine appointment. The three
Mhm.
of us in this conversation are generating healing, not just in ourselves, but those who come forth and listen, those who will come behind us and hear, and those who are in front of us who will understand. And all
Mhm.
of this is spoken and unspoken words. They look at our faces. They look at our celebration of each other. They look at the love between us, and they
Mhm.
can't help but be transformed. It's transformative. And
That's
so when
true.
you talk about healing and using words, I think about my big mama, my grandma, who used to be a domestic servant. She'd be going, Jesus, Lord, Lord. And I was going, ooh, she going, Jesus, Lord, Lord. And then one day I'm in my kitchen, I'm going, Jesus, Lord, Lord. Then I'm my grandmother. So I understood how that circle of change is, that rhythm of healing is transformative. And when we get somebody in the midst of us like you
Mhm.
dropped up in here and you invited us into that spirit. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for the invitation, and I'm staying here for a minute. I've been invited.
We are here
Okay,
together.
all right. We're all back now. Yeah. Well, let me jump in there and say, as you were talking, Azmera, and this is probably my imagination, but I was almost having a feeling of hearing sitar and tabla. I don't know where it came from, but the feeling I had, and it might have been just the warble and the electronics,
Mm.
came across to me
Mm,
as a sitar player
mhm,
playing trance music, transcendental
Mhm.
music, uh,
mhm,
accompanying, riding on, and driving uh, your words, your thought, your spirit.
Mm.
Just me,
Mm.
just me.
Right.
So uh, that's why this is special to me as well.
mhm,
Yeah, and I was
Mhm.
thinking too, Dr. B, that, and I don't have the thought fully formed. I'm going to try to make it happen in my mind as I think about it. I was going over a class I'm taking online with Dr. Muriel Beatty, who's at Howard University. The class is called Metu Netur. And it's a class
mm,
in writing and understanding Middle Egyptian or hieroglyphics. And the lesson I was reviewing was lesson number 8, had a reference to the fact that, the language was about, uh, his comment was that the ancient Egyptians in their building, in their creating edifices, on the earth, started with the idea that what they build here is simply representation of what is not seen, but of the creation story itself. So the
mhm,
building and everything being built uh, was simply a reflection of a reality that might not be seen, but that is expansive, pervasive, eternal, and is the true nature. And the true nature of that picture that they were attempting to concretize in building and creating. He described the temple. The class was about the glyph for the temple and what the temple meant, and kind of declined uh, that. I'll talk about that later on. It was great, but he said temples were created uh, in a with mud walls around them, and it wasn't like it's a square, but it's a sort of a dynamic shape, but the dynamicness of the shape reflected the dynamic nature of the water of Nun, out of which creation emerged, and the temple was simply a reflection of the process of creation itself. And the temple, uh, in which knowledge and learning and justice and education and culture and human interaction and civilization occurred was a metaphor for the act of and the product of creation itself. And as I was reading it, it made it clear to me that the water out of which everything created was a water which reflected the capacity to give birth. So the divine is the power of regeneration and of giving birth. And that is where eternity, I don't know, so I'm just tripping. But that's what I'm reading and hearing and putting together, both from the Meru Netter study, but also the lecture from Dr. Carruthers and conversations like this. And so where do you go with it, Al? You go back to Azmera with no time today to have you respond, but I keep raising the question of the patriarchy and the impact of hierarchical structures and how those structures either enable or disable the continued unfolding of our best selves as human beings and in our relationship with other things that are in existence, both the living and the non-living, or the animate and the inanimate. But we're all kind of related. We're all part of the same thing. Well, anyway, thank you for listening to me and let me think out loud, because your presence pushes and pulls the thinking that I am seeking. And this is just a great place for it. We got about a minute. Let me just have you throw up, Dr. B, a thought for a minute, and Azmera, a thought for a minute. We're going to close.
The thought I have is one of a stream filled with knowledge flowing through and around, above and over the things in our minds that tell us not to hear, not to be. The stream that overcomes the obstacles to health and wellness and wholeness. This is what we're talking about today. How to be a part of that stream and go through it.
Sister Azmera, a closing thought.
That's beautiful. My closing thought is just breath of life, breath of forgiveness, breath of a new start, breath of light. Just that we have the gift of breath today. And for this day that we say the Lord has made, that the Creator has made, may we breathe a little more easy. May we step closer to compassion for ourselves and for others. And may we be well.
Listen, thank you both. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation. We'll see you next time. Take care.